Okay, my name is Gerd Sander. I'm the grandson of August Sander. I was born in the year 1940, grew up during the World War II in Cologne, and in 1945 I came to my grandfather in the Westerwald region, which is about an hour from Cologne, and that's where I got introduced not only into his life, but into his philosophies and to his photography. At the age of 6, he showed me how to develop a print, and that changed my life. I wanted to be a photographer too. My occupation is the life of my grandfather, who had a tremendous input on my own personal life, not only my grandfather, but also my grandmother, the whole family, the family history, the history of the oldest son, Gerd Sander, who died 44 in a Nazi prison, my father's life as a commercial photographer, and my aunt, who in 1946 immigrated to the United States, and where I immigrated in 1975 with my family and 2 children. After that, being in Washington or in the Washington region, I one day decided to open a gallery because of encouragement from American friends who said, "You are European, you should show us something about European photography," which of course I tried with more or less success, And in 1984, in December, my father transferred the work of August Sander to me as his only heir, and in 1988 I came back with my wife. The children stayed in America, and we decided, well, we should organize this estate, this 11,000 negatives and the prints and the letters and whatever is there. And in 2 years, we go back to the United States. Well, now, again, that was 1988. I'm still in Europe, and I remain in Europe, I now live in France, in Normandy, for 22 years. Still don't speak sufficient French to do this introduction into French, but I love it here, and I have the tranquility and the quietness to work on the estate of August Sander, on his work, on his philosophy in life. And that's how this exhibition happened. And I'm very grateful to David, who was a really true partner in getting this together, because we had some disagreements about certain things, which is always important to have that, because through the discussion, you come to a better result. And that's why we're here today. And I thank you for being patient and listening to me. Well, the one thing which is really a first is the family album. This album belonged to my aunt in America. August Sander produced it in the early 50s, I think. There's no exact date known. And my cousin, who is 10 years younger than I am, American, inherited it from her mother. And I bought it from her. And I thought, this is one part of the history of August Sander, which most people don't know, because he documented his family life very specifically with a large format camera in the style he photographed, But that was something which he never showed publicly. It was part of his personal life. So when the idea for this exhibition came up, I proposed to David to show Antlitz zur Zeit, Face of Our Time, 60 photographs which were published in 1929, which is still the most important book on August Sander, because the essay by Alfred Döblin, a very famous German writer, is the most important essay, in my opinion, which was ever written about August Sander. Unfortunately, it's not available in French, but it's available in English, and of course the German version is better to understand how Döblin placed Sander in the world of photography, or let's better say in the world of art. So when we started with that, David said, okay, this is nice, 60 pictures, but we have a big room. So we started to think about it, and I came up with the idea of the family album. And when that was still not enough, I said, okay, an important part of August Sander's work in general, which many people don't know yet, or only partially know, is the photography of nature, of landscapes, in and around Cologne, but also in the Westerwald, in the Eifel region, everywhere. And his concerns for nature go back to his childhood, when he, in one text, he writes when his mother took him out into the countryside to show him what nature could give us, to eat, to heal, to destroy us also. She introduced him into nature, and I think that's one thing which never left him. And he photographed nature in general, plants and flowers and animals from very early years on. And he wanted to publish some portfolios about it. Not all of them ever were finished, but he did write about botanical issues, and they were published in the 30s in magazines. He was a very knowledgeable man about what was growing outside and what could be eaten, which is very helpful after a war where there's nothing to eat anymore. So that's one thing, which I thought we could introduce. And the other issue was to place him into the context of the artist in Cologne where he lived. And it was not the photographers which were around him. It were the writers, the painters, the musicians, the actors. And part of what he collected, let's say, which he received partially in exchange for him photographing the work of this artist, is part of this collection. So I thought it would be interesting for a public to see in which environment his work grew, because it did not grow all by himself. Everything which grows goes in exchange with other people which are of the same spirit as you are. And there are two important people in this exhibition here. It's Franz Wilhelm Seiwert and Heinrich Hörle, two artists who belong to the so-called Cologne Progressives. And it was especially Seiwert, with whom he had very fervent discussions, as my father noted in an unpublished biography by him, who helped Sander to steer the direction in what his work should be all about, And with the encouragement of these people, he continued to work, even during the Nazi time, And that was his specific gift, I think, to make people feel comfortable in front of the camera. Yeah, sure, the lens is what you look at. The lens was something, it was a supplement for August Sander, because with a view camera, you stand right next to the lens, and you talk like we talk now. Yeah, you talk, and he always would say, look into the lens, look, and now hold still, and would expose 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, a quarter of a second, depending on the light situations. You have to understand at the time, there was no light meter, no automatic camera. Whatever you photographed, you had to look through the ground glass onto the picture you wanted to take, and know exactly how long you would expose and what aperture you would choose. And of course, that is something that comes comme habitude. That is something which is in you. Yeah. So he focused. He said, you focus on the lens, and then I tell you, hold still 1 second, blink your eyes. He always believed that you blink your eyes because that makes the eyes alive. You can't see that, but you know it. Yeah. It's a difference between a portrait of 3-second exposure or with 125 or 250. Yeah, of course, that was common to the people at the time. They knew that because that was the technique. That has changed now. But this is why these pictures are so alive. For me, seeing, observing, thinking. Voir, observer, penser. Yeah, you get an introduction to this man who is now, without doubt, a major figure in the 20th century art field, not only in photography, in art in general. Many so-called visual artists refer to his works. Some even copy certain images, and include them in their paintings or drawings or whatever. He is a fixture because of his thinking and the way he made his photographs. Without a mind, you don't have a photograph. You have to think about what you want. Like an artist makes hundreds of sketches sometimes in a little sketchbook. He was a painter too. He studied painting when he was, I think, 29, 30, but decided then for himself that he could have been a fairly good painter, but it was too slow for him to execute his ideas besides, with photography, you could make a living. Yeah? You could earn money and to live, And that's why he became a photographer. And he did pictorial photography in Austria, in the mode of the time, But already there, he decided to go with his clients and the camera outside of the studio, in nature, or go to their house and photograph them in their surroundings, which was totally uncommon at the time. Most pictures were taken for decoration background and, to show the people in the best possible light, so to speak, And he decided, no, let's go outside, or let's see, where do you like to be photographed in your house? What's your favorite corner? And it was always the conversation to find out who is the person I'm photographing. How can I get a sensible but correct picture of him without lifting him up or putting him down or anything, just normal. So I think one can see, especially with his family pictures, which were basically truly for him, and the things of Antlitzer Zeit, you see two sides, you see similarities and dissimilarities. Also, when you look at these pictures here, they look at you too. Not only these over there, these pictures too. Yeah? He was an interesting, complex personality, I tell you. And he never stopped to amaze me, and I never stopped learning from him. In one word, let me think for a second. It's really difficult. In one word. Not a visionary, and also still a visionary. He was a recorder of time without even thinking about that he wanted to record a time. It's almost impossible to put him in one word, He was too complex. Yeah. But he was a man with a conviction that he wanted to preserve something which for him was very important about us as a human race, and the environment we live in. That's as small as one word I can say. Objectivity. Objectivity without uplifting or downlooking, to be objective as much as one can as a human being, without judgment, non-judgmental. Yeah? Just straight. That applies to the landscapes as well, to the portraits. It applies to everything he did. Not judgmental, honest. What you see is what you get, and that's the secret of photography, opposite to a drawing or a painting. You look through the camera, you have that one split second to push the shutter. And that's what you looked at that time in history. You can never repeat that. You can repaint something, but you cannot rephotograph something. It's only once, one specific second, or moment, let's say moment, in our history. I hope that people get into the images, into the people. I'll tell you why I say that. I did an exhibition in Moscow in 1994. The catalog is sitting here. This was him on the cover, that photograph on the cover. And the grandson of Rodchenko I met there. And he wrote me a wonderful letter. The pictures were hung in the Pushkin Museum, as close as these there. Yeah, one by one, because there was only 1.5 rooms for 140 pictures. Close by this. And he said, the people stood in line and went from one picture to the next picture to the next picture. He said, because the Russians love people. The Russians are interested in who the other person is. So they were standing there and looking at one individual images because the images were looking at them. Mm-hmm. They tried to understand who these Germans were, who devastated this whole country. Who were they? And suddenly they're different people. He said the museum was full. The catalog was sold out in 4 days. Yeah. People going one by one by one. That was for me an encouragement to continue, to show the work. If the Russians are interested in it, why not the French? Why not the Americans? Why not the Italians and the Spanish? And it happened. Wherever the work is seen, people have the same reaction as you said. The pictures look at you. And that's what it's all about.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for asking these questions, and I hope I gave you some answers.